What's up, YouTube? Brad Hoover from RANTS here. Alright, so even the official Disney Plus Twitter account hates the sequel trilogy of Star Wars. Can't say that I blame it. By far, I think the sequel trilogy in Star Wars was the worst thing that ever happened to Star Wars by a long shot. Nothing even compares to it. You could say, okay, the prequel trilogy, a lot of the CGI feels dated now. The thing about the midichlorians, but man, all of that pales in comparison. Pales in comparison. As much as we hated Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker because of his poor acting, guess what people were actually clamoring for at the end of the sequel trilogy? They were wanting Hayden Christensen to reprise his role as Anakin Skywalker to make this film at least somewhat work. If you'd have said that 10 years ago, people would have laughed at you. I mean, they would have literally laughed at you that Star Wars fans would be begging for Hayden Christensen to come back. But that's the state of Disney Star Wars right now. You can say, well, they've got a lot. They've got an exciting future, and they do to a certain extent. They got the Ahsoka Tano series. They got, of course, the Bad Batch. They've got the Mandalorian, Boba Fett, so forth. Obi-Wan and so forth. They do have some interesting series coming out, but there feels like there's going to be a lot of overlap when it comes to these series. They're all and maybe that's what they're trying to do. Maybe they're trying to create an Arrowverse for Star Wars. I don't know how that's going to work. I'm not particularly excited about it. I hope that's not the direction that they end up going with it. I don't want to have to watch one show to have to watch another, even though I'll be watching all of them probably. But I mean, look, that's just the state of things in 2021. It's what a lot of these companies are wanting to go to, especially these streaming services. But yeah, I mean, let's go ahead, before I get on a large rant about the sequel trilogy, let's go ahead and let's read about what the official Disney Plus Twitter account has to say about it. It goes on to say, the Star Wars sequel trilogy shade is strong with this one. In this case, the one in question is Disney Plus Latino America, which hopped aboard the recent Twitter trend of sharing a statement followed by a number of red flag emojis to signify that those words should be cause for concern. La última trilogía de Star Wars es la mejor, the account tweeted, which translates to the latest Star Wars trilogy is the best. And then it's got all the red flags to it. Look, I'm sorry. That's funny. I think that's funny. It's bad. It was bad 2 years after the last one, the sequel trilogy. It still feels like a nightmare. Still feels like a nightmare. A nightmare you just can't forget. As a Star Wars fan, you just want to ignore it. But it being a part of canon, you can't. Especially, look, I'm one that I've been calling for Star Wars for a very long time to move away from Darth Vader and Palpatine and just that 18-year era that they just keep focusing on. Not to say that I don't love those characters. I absolutely do love those characters. I love them so much that I don't want them to be ruined. I don't trust Disney. I really don't. I don't trust Disney to showcase these characters that I love and to not ruin them. To a certain extent, I almost kind of feel like, Rebels kind of ruined, and a lot of these just recent comic books kind of ruined kind of what Darth Vader was. It went from Darth Vader, feeling betrayed by his friends and trying to save his his family, Padme and his unborn children, trying to save them. And then that's what pushed him over the edge when he just felt like there was an ultimate betrayal there. Um, but then later on, they tried to make it where, well, he's got like split personality disorder and things along those lines. And I kind of felt like that kind of lessened his character to a certain extent, simply because it wasn't a tragedy that brought about it. It was something that was just inherently in him. Um, I didn't like that direction that it went with. To a certain, like I said, to a certain extent, I feel like it kind of lessened Darth Vader. But you could also say the prequel trilogy actually did that as well. Lessened Darth Vader, but that's what happens when you take these iconic characters and you just keep adding stuff to them and adding stuff to them and adding stuff to them. Eventually, they won't be that mysterious characters that you come to love. And, because of the mystery of them, when you know everything about them, you know them at their best, you know them at their worst. And sometimes that takes away, taking away of the mystery takes away from the characters. Now, unfortunately, when it comes to the sequel trilogy, we got none of that. We didn't get very much information over anybody. We've got really characters that really were just completely there because they were female, African American, and so forth. They fit a specific thing when it comes to the identity politics thing. They didn't try to add any depth to these characters. You know what? I thought Finn was one that they could have really done something special with. They had the right actor for the role to do something special with, and they did nothing. And you know what? Rey Scott, I don't even like saying the word Skywalker, but Rey would have been an interesting character, but she just wasn't. There was no layers to her. There was nothing that made you go, wow, she's really had to overcome adversity. No, she didn't. She was just great to begin with. And then she completely and totally, I mean, at the end of the day, when you have a Palpatine taking on the Skywalker legacy, that hurts. That really, really hurts to this day. So you know what? I'm glad Disney Plus Twitter account actually agrees with that. I hope that just Disney Plus and Disney in general realize just how devastating that sequel trilogy is. And you know what? Maybe retcon it from all of Star Wars. Just say it's not canon and try something new and different. That's what I would like to do. Like for them to do. Unfortunately, I don't know if that'll ever happen. I really don't. I think Disney's plan is you know what? We're going to keep going forward when it comes to the Star Wars that we've got. We're just not going to mention it quite as much because we know that fans are still pissed about it. And to me, that's not good enough. It's not good enough. Can't even be canon for me to get over it. That's the way I look at it. I mean, having an alternate dimension or something along those lines. But don't have that Luke Skywalker be the Luke Skywalker that we knew from the original trilogy. Don't do that to us. Don't do that to us. That's the reason why in The Mandalorian Season 2, I wasn't that inspired when I saw Luke Skywalker. Because all I could see is, okay, this is the Luke that I remember. The one that's full of hope. And the one that's inspiring. But that's not the Luke that we ended with at the end. And that will always trouble me anytime that any of these characters makes an appearance. Whether it be Han Solo, who we all know had a terrible ending to him as well. Whether it be Leia, who I felt like, I don't even know what they were doing with Leia. I mean, they kept her in movies, 2 movies after she was even passed away, which just didn't make any sense. They took the characters that are actually living, and killed them off, but kept the character that had been deceased for 2 movies, and kept her going with that. It just made no sense. Literally made no sense to do something like that. But anyways, guys, I just had to report on this. I thought this was absolutely fun. That they would actually the Twitter plus, the Disney Plus Twitter account even is throwing shade at the sequel trilogy. Hey, you know what? Maybe people's eyes are opening. Maybe they're realizing, hey, you know what? We tried, we failed, we're sorry, and you know what? We're going to try to do better. Not too much to ask of a company. Might be too much to ask out of Disney, though. But, anyways, guys, let me know what y'all think in comments down below. And as always, thanks for watching. Y'all take